So, bro, asking the right questions actually makes people get to like you. There's basically no reason, and I'm saying this as somebody who was going through social anxiety a couple of years ago, right? And one thing you get to realize is if your conversations are very boring, you feel like they are meaningless, they feel repetitive, or you have social anxiety, the ability to ask the right questions, right, will basically help you, right? If your conversations feel boring, if your conversations even feel like they are inauthentic, asking the right questions will help you. And see, there are other benefits to asking questions. Now, for the sake of this video, let's talk about asking questions for the sake of you just becoming a very interesting person, right? Because people don't realize that you being interested is you being interesting. It's you being interesting to other people. Is you being interested in other people's lives. And the real way to show interest is to ask questions. But I'll tell you, when it comes to any setting, asking questions would always be your power. Even when it comes to, right, asking questions helps you like talk to people, become more likable, helps a bunch of stuff. Now, speaking of a bunch of stuff, I remember recently, right, I just met this girl. She's an air hostess. I was like, oh, an air hostess, but like in training. I was like, oh, air hostess in training. Okay, so we're talking, and she's like, I was like, oh, what's your type rating? And she's like, oh, how did I know about type rating? Am I a pilot? I could tell that her eyes lit up. Now, at the moment, I was like, I kind of know a number of air hostess from my swimming school. Then, trust me, at that moment, it kind of dawned on me that listening to people's stories actually does improve your questions and your conversations, right? Again, asking the right questions kind of like makes you think, right? Because to be very, very frank, most conversations that I see people, right, it's mostly just boring. It doesn't feel like it's flowing. And one thing I'll tell you for sure is if you master the art of learning, getting questions, one other hack is it gets you mentors, it gets you deep connections, it gets you friends. Because most conversations I see, like I said, boring, lame, monotonous, and conversations should be thing that is easy. It should not feel like it's interrogation. You should let it flow. So a couple of tips here is that one, the main thing stopping you is your social anxiety. Is the ideas in your head. It's like, what if I ask the wrong question, prof? If you're just starting out, there's a high chance you're going to ask the wrong questions or the right questions at the wrong time, prof. You will mix things up. So the major thing that stops you is the starting of asking questions. So the more people you ask, the better you get that. That's why I tell you, as early as possible, start talking to women. As early as possible, start having social events. And if you're somebody who is even learning how to sell, the power of questions will change your life. Because, bro, that is it. You see, when it comes to learning how to sell, this is where I realized that questions are so powerful. They can basically be used to manipulate people. And I'll tell you for a fact that whenever I'm asking people questions and whenever people come to my life, I'm like, okay, you know what I tell myself is, if I'm working to this person's interest, I'm persuading. If I'm working without his or against his interest, it's called manipulation. So I'll tell you, again, that's the reason you should also know how to ask questions. So a first tip is start broad, right? When you're talking to people, you want to ask questions that are very, very safe. Because to be very frank, I see a lot of guys go on YouTube, go on Google, ask questions like, oh, what should I 10 questions to ask a girl. Now you see, when you go with that kind of mindset, you're going for an interrogation, an interview, not a conversation. Yes, those questions might help, but when you start with something broad and begin to work your way down to something much more narrow, something much more interesting, you begin to learn how to layer your questions. The second tip I'll give to you is following up conversations, right? When you follow up conversations, because I've seen guys, they're having a conversation, right, about maybe our childhood dreams, and they just divert to something else, like what they studied in university. Such a very huge disconnection. No, there's a big connection there. Sorry, they go from something like what her childhood dream was to what she ate this morning to where you see. So, when you're following up with conversations, when you're following up with other questions, what it basically tells you is you're somebody who is generally curious about the person. And trust me, people like to talk about themselves. That's why if you look at how people get manipulated, it's mostly them getting to talk about yourself a lot, right? I'm saying this because, prof, learning to ask the right questions will change your life. Like I'm basically saying this because I just remember how much of an introvert and how much excuses I had in my head. But when I learned this out of asking questions, even to mentors. So again, it starts with something broad, something safe. Again, it helps you to build rapport with people, right? When you get people to talk about themselves, talk about what they like, talk about their interest, talk about what gives them confidence, right? And then when you're following up, you see, initially when you meet people, right, they are mostly having shallow conversations. But what that means is some people actually want to go below the shallow conversations. They want to have something deep, right? So a typical example is you're with a girl, right, and she says something like she loves a certain like location or something, probe her on her location and see the way she talks. She gives you stories because people want to remember their childhood stories, right? So it's a gift for the fact that you are somebody who made them remember their childhood stories. And by the way, I'm an introvert, and the way I like to do this is I do more of the listening than the talking. And like I said, it gets everybody, not just women, it gets guys, it gets people who are very, very stressed in their life. It gets almost everybody asking and then listening for the answers, following up, right? Again, when you learn to ask questions, you also learn to direct conversations, right? And this is even you controlling the frame, and it's a very masculine thing for you to do to control the frame. Where okay, you ask a question, they answer it, but their answer deviates from what you're trying to achieve. You can ask questions that flip it back to your conversation. This is in selling, where your conversation might just go haywire, but you're bringing it back simply because you master the art of asking questions, right? So again, start with broad questions, but questions that are very, very safe. Because I remember when and I started this out, right. One girl that asked, I met in about 5 6 minutes. I asked her where does she live, and she's like, bro, like how the fuck will I tell you where I live? Why are you asking that? It was so awkward. I ran away, and again, I'm saying this because I'm not here to tell you I'm on professional stuff, but the only thing stopping you from asking questions and having meaningful conversations is the ideas in your head. Oh, it's so difficult. Oh, I fumble, so you give up, right? And trust me, you can never make progress if you're giving up, right? So hear me very well. Start with. I'll keep hammering to you when you're in a conversation. Start with broad questions, right? With the broad questions, follow up. What that means is if you go on, maybe you go on Google or something and you ask 10 texts to send to a girl when you just meet for the first time. When you give her the first text, if she vibes with it, let her go deeper on that conversation, along that thread. Don't just deviate, even though you want to go to something else, right? Even though you want to go to something else, lead the conversation. Don't just let it go spiral. By the way, asking the right questions can expose people's characters. I often hear guys who talk about their exes or some bad partnership, and if you look at it very well, right, you can tell someone's character from the questions they ask. You can tell someone's character from the way they answer questions, right? I tell you that, bro, that is even how you catch people, right? Ask them questions. If you are talking to somebody and you're kind of like in a difficult situation, you can basically even use questions to direct the conversation, to deflect it. Because again, questions are just very powerful. Have you ever been in a situation where you just receive some answer in your head and you discover that you received that answer simply because you asked a question a couple of days ago. That's why I tell you that, bro, I can't underestimate. So this video is not a video that I think would even spread so far because you are still out there heavily misunderstanding how powerful questions are. Questions, like I said, they open the mind for so many opportunities. They work on the mind. What else? Look, when you start asking questions, and like I said, one kind of question that will get you mentors is you asking them for advice. I'm somebody who preaches that as a young man, the best life hack you can do is start surrounding yourself with men who are older than you, 5 to 10 years, or who are older than you generally, who have passed your level of life, who have the kind of life you're trying to live. You see, when you have guys like this, right, and you keep asking them for their advice, to them they feel good about themselves, bro. And that's just basically how they get to like you, right? You are genuinely interested in them. You are genuinely interested in the advice they give you. And by the way, you are taking action on this advice. You see, mentors, people are looking for who to mentor. For real, right? And I keep meeting mentors very often. If you check my vlogs, I'm meeting different mentors and bro, it's a life-changing process. Your ability to ask smart questions. So when you're asking them questions, don't ask questions that are stupid that you can easily Google, right? Don't ask questions that I would say are super personal too early, because I believe that if you have built enough rapport, you can ask personal questions. The more rapport you have built, so be careful to not ask questions too soon, right? Again, how you get people to like you further is if you if you're genuinely a curious person, right? Because sometimes people have their guards up, right? And in the sense that you are trying to get information from them, to back off, right? But one thing I'll tell you for sure is if you master that art of, if you really think about it, right? That is the very core essence of persuading people. You're asking questions, right, that lead you to a sale. So what that means is, whether I like it or not, asking questions will be about the art of asking questions will be the best skill you ever take in your entire life. Right? So a couple of things that I think you should know when you start is that at your start, you're going to be bad at it. But the reality is the more people you talk to, the more questions you ask, the better you get at it. Right? Another thing I'll tell you is don't force the questions. Because if you force the questions, this is where I see guys, they go and Google 10 questions to ask a babe on the first date. And like, bro, just ask about fucking childhood. Do you know how many people out there really miss their childhood fantasies? A lot of people. You see, one thing I come to realize is when you do that, sometimes it makes people ask themselves, have I really been sleeping on myself for these years? So I remember a girl I was talking to, and the fact that even it happens to guys a lot. It happens to guys a lot where they realize that their childhood fantasies and their current realities are two opposite angles. And it leaves you wondering, it's like, what the fuck have I been doing all these years? And there's nothing as interesting as making somebody come alive again. That is the whole idea of becoming a high vibrational person. And if you really take it right, most social advice boils down to ask the right questions, follow up, have positive body language. It's that simple. Don't overcomplicate social processes. I'm saying this because just looking back at it, I'm looking at how much anxiety I used to have, right? And these days I just feel like, Prof, I'm just somebody who I think everybody wants to talk to, right? Again, don't force conversation, don't force questions. Don't be afraid. Again, don't be afraid to counter opinions, right? Because I often see a lot of guys who want to like get to talk to girls. They often fall into this trap of, okay, I've asked her a question, she has given me an answer, but I want her to like me because you tend to force the likeness. So you start agreeing to everything she says. And trust me, women can sense that kind of behavior. It's like, why the fuck do you want me to like you like just like that? Doesn't really help the relationship. Doesn't really help the relationship. So I spoke about always going with the flow, right? Start with questions that are very safe, right? It's like, okay, the girl who I fucked up with about where she lives, the first question I asked her was, oh, hi, this is your first time here. Like, it's that simple, right? But over time, you get to realize that you don't really have to use all those questions to open up people when it comes to approaching them. But by the way, questions are always powerful. They help you to fish deep. I'm a guy who likes to have deep conversations, though. But questions help you to scale through the small talk and help you to scale through to the person's desire. So a couple of questions you can even ask. Oh yeah, that reminds me, yeah, that make people like you. What are their passions, right? What are their childhood fantasies? What were their dreams? What do they really like to do? Again, talk about things that people really, really like to talk about. And before you know it, Prof, you're having conversation with somebody for 1 hour, 45 minutes. They don't want to let go. That's why I tell people that, Prof, when you get the drift of it, right? It's therapeutic, which exactly in therapy they ask you questions. So, bro, I'm basically giving you reasons why you should learn to ask questions because, bro, easy when it comes to conversations, right? It's a super game changer. And if you even learn the art of asking questions, you can make statements that makes the person feel like it's a question, right? With your tonality and everything. So, bro, that's it, right? If you really want to improve your conversational game, you want to improve your game, just fucking learn to ask questions, right? Listen to the answers. Again, when people tell you things, like don't judge them. It's also another hack for people to like you, because if you can listen to them without any facial expression, without any form of judgment, trust me, again, it's a way of getting people to like you. And bro, when people like you, what happens? People bring opportunities to you. People confide in you, right? Again, I can always say, I'm somebody who had that social anxiety, right? And I'm just trying to like help other guys out there without having this complex system, right? So go out there, go and have as many attempts as possible. Get your failures out of the way, which is exactly what I think you should be doing. And stop making excuses in your head. My name is Tom Oreye. I think I should make a video on how I overcame my social anxiety because I've had like a couple of failures and I'm quite proud of it. By the way, my name is Tom Oreye. If you like the idea you heard in this video, I want you to please share with somebody who you know will find it helpful because it makes you realize that I'm helping more guys out there to overcome this anxiety, to stop having these boring conversations. And the more you do this thing, guess what? The more likable you are. At the moment I help, you might kind of feel good on the inside. By the way, everybody should feel good for helping other people. Talk to you soon, and bye for now, brother.